Good morning, beloved Sangha. While the bells play, we will recite the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva's way of life. Namo Lokeshvaraya. While seeing that all phenomena neither come nor go, you strive solely for the sake of all beings. Supreme Guru and Protector Chenrezig at all times, I respectfully pay homage to you with my body, speech, and mind. The perfect Buddhas, source of all benefit and happiness, arise from having accomplished the true Dharma. Since that depends on knowing the practices, I shall explain the way of Bodhisattvas. Having now gained this great ship of freedom and fortune, so difficult to find in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of cyclic existence, listen, reflect, and meditate day and night without distraction. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Attachment to loved ones churns like water. Hatred for enemies rages like fire. In the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to avoid. Abandon your homeland. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When negative places are abandoned, disturbing emotions will gradually decline. Without distractions, attention to virtue naturally grows. When the mind becomes clear, certainty in the Dharma arises. Live alone in seclusion. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Family and longtime companions will part from each other. Possessions gained with effort will be left behind. Consciousness a guest will leave the guest house of the body. Let go of all worldly concerns. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. The activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating decline, and love and compassion are lost. Give up such companions. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When one follows a true spiritual friend, faults will dissolve and good qualities will grow like the waxing moon. Consider this friend more dear than your own body. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Who can worldly gods themselves imprisoned in samsara protect? Therefore, seek refuge in the three jewels, the undeceiving source of refuge. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. The Buddha taught that all the unbearable suffering of the lower realms is caused by wrongdoing. Therefore, never act wrongfully even at the cost of your life. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass, the happiness of the three worlds vanishes in but an instant. Strive for the supreme state of never-changing liberation. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. When mothers who have loved you since beginningless time are suffering, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, give rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate infinite sentient beings. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. All suffering without exception comes from seeking your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the altruistic mind. Therefore, truly exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by great desire steals all your wealth or lets others steal it, dedicate to them your body, possessions, and all virtues of the three times. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone cuts off your head when you haven't done anything wrong, take all their negative deeds upon yourself through the power of compassion. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if others slander you throughout a billion worlds, in return, speak with a loving mind of their good qualities. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone exposes your hidden faults and insults you in front of others, view that person as a teacher and bow with respect. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone you have cared for as dearly as your own child regards you as an enemy, love that person even more as a mother would her ailing child. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Even if someone of equal or lower status, driven by pride, treats you with disdain, respectfully place them on your crown as your teacher. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Though you may be impoverished, always disparaged, gripped by disease and tormented by spirits, never lose courage, but take on the misdeeds and pains of all beings. This is the way of a Bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and revered by many, and are as rich as the wealth god himself, having seen that worldly fortune is without essence, do not be proud. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If the enemy, your own anger, is not tamed, subduing outer enemies will only make them increase. Therefore, subdue your own mind with the army of love and compassion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Sensory pleasures are like salt water. The more you drink, the greater your thirst. Abandon at once all things that give rise to clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. The way things appear is your own mind. Mind itself primordially transcends fabricated extremes. Knowing just this, do not create concepts of subject and object. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When you come across things that attract you, like beautiful rainbows in summertime, do not regard them as real and abandon clinging attachment. This is the way of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. How exhausting it is to hold illusory appearances as real. Therefore, when you meet with difficult circumstances, see them as illusory. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When even one's body must be given up when aspiring for enlightenment, what need is there to mention material things? Therefore, practice generosity without hope of reward or karmic results. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you lack moral discipline, you cannot accomplish even your own purpose, so wanting to achieve the purpose of others is truly absurd. Therefore, protect your discipline without concern for worldly existence. This is the way of a bodhisattva. For bodhisattvas who desire a wealth of virtue, all harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without hostility, be patient with everyone. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Even hearers or solitary realizers who accomplish only their own purpose strive as if putting out a fire on their head. Seeing this, practice with diligence the source of good qualities for the sake of all beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Disturbing emotions are destroyed by an insight grounded in calm abiding. Knowing this, cultivate meditative concentration that purely transcends the four formless absorptions. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Without wisdom, the other five perfections alone are not enough to reach complete enlightenment. Thus, combined with skillful means, develop the wisdom that does not distinguish among the three spheres. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Unless you examine your own confused ideas, you might look like a practitioner but not be acting like one. Therefore, always examine yourself and abandon confusion. This is the way of a bodhisattva. If you are driven by disturbing emotions and talk about another bodhisattva's faults, it is actually to your own detriment, so don't mention the faults of those who have entered the great vehicle. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Concern for gain and respect causes conflict and a decline in the activities of learning, reflecting, and meditating. So abandon attachment to your circle of friends, relations, and benefactors. This is the way of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb others' minds and thus diminish the practice of a bodhisattva. Therefore, abandon harsh speech which is unpleasant to others. This is the way of a bodhisattva. When disturbing emotions become habitual, it is difficult to reverse them with antidotes. Thus, the soldier of mindfulness wields antidotes as weapons and destroys disturbing emotions, such as attachment, the moment they start to arise. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you are doing, always examine the state of your mind. Act to accomplish the purpose of others through constant mindfulness and awareness. This is the way of a bodhisattva. With the wisdom of threefold purity, dedicate all the virtue gained from having made such effort toward enlightenment. Dedicate it to clear away the suffering of infinite beings. This is the way of a bodhisattva. In accordance with the words of the Holy Ones regarding the meaning of the sutras, tantras, and their commentaries, I have written these 37 verses on the ways of a bodhisattva for those who wish to train on the bodhisattva's path. This composition will not be admired by the learned because my intellect is poor and my education is limited. However, I have followed the sutras and the words of Holy Ones, so I believe these ways of a bodhisattva are not mistaken. Still, because of the vast deeds of bodhisattvas are difficult to grasp by simple-minded beings like myself, I beg the forgiveness of the Holy Ones for the mass of my errors, such as contradictions and inconsistencies. By the virtue arising from this, may all beings give rise to relative and ultimate bodhicitta, and thereby become like the protector Chenrezig, who does not abide in the extremes of existence or peace.
저 출라 삼살로 돌로도 사바달라도 그 생각나마 기둘려야 장살로 저기 예들나 마밤에라 저가 뭐뭐로 봐자고 까줄로만 나서 근데 오늘 포장내서 산지고 영어원이라 생기고 무슨 도대 봐서 러베처럼 소한테 사다던 것에 비정되지 나타서 좀 뭐 상대 진행을 저저거 저기 도지장로서 사람도 간절하게 주지 약속에 뭐죠 어디로서 생기도 너도 나지나 남바 추제는 저서도 저리다 가상 도내 용도에 담기를 타마들서 하나 됐던 봐 지치가는 조조리 이 도내 용도 시바지들이 저 땅지랑 그 평강집지 제 가장 라과 수요래 이제 시행요래 들리면서 서로 주디 조왕아 나게 심심한 요몽아 그래서 이신아 성태선 이런 풍부시 받으니 가장 저도 주에서 말이 풍부하게 나사년 가래나들이 평강집지 저 평강집 과시 마침시什么 레바 초모서 역체들 대신 요래 옛날 때에는 이런 것을 루이데 루셈님한테 강다지가 되다 나그시나 칼라사와 그래 말라리베 자동 총코스 집에 당아서 자동 총코스 집에 가래에 설더니 총코스 받더니 이제 룸질라서 와세더니 사다 빠워서 강 장미 버리 찐찐들이데 찐찐 조반버들이 사는 조반버 그래 사다서 가와요래 삼거요래 그 traducción 요래 옛날 라시 봐도 강의 샘도 타고 차서 저 샘상화들 라차노 요래 샘상화들이 사마다 힘들게 라차노 되지 랑을 샘이가 있는 앞에는 다 칼라서 잡던 총코스 집에 담아서 뭐지 랑을 샘이가 들이 루이데라 랑티보 도도들이 인상도 말이 속차 사야 동설만 보요래 다시 사진을 까는 때 가서 집에 시가 쏘는 거래 다 칠리가 때문에 다 대화형 복스 오고도 동아형 복스 오고도 나는 벌써 속 차만 보도 드리페는 포카 막되는 포카를 핑핑 버 누군 버도 당아 포카 나사리들이 고생할 때인데 핑핑 버려야지 누군 버려 피누이랑 복스 제요래 뭐지 화제로 속 차래야 돼 속 차지 차왔더니 무슨 저희 더 트랍다요. 라과라들이 랍도 잠시는 속차 지총을 속차 지총이야. 뭐지 말이 총총 지화를 가려들 때 저대요. 대지젤이 평강제시 부모가 자와르나 나님모 부모가지 유모가 시켜요래. 유모가들이 속초와도 신들이 나발치왕가들이 부모가서 대도 자체도 또 뭔가 잘 차도 띵하대 마음이는 좋아를 좀 차려오리 이 생조왕아대 영아서 너를 보더라 리셈이가 성도 적네 이 매일이도 저래 너를 풍고제들이 속고 도도 나빠져야 매봐래 대로 차들 나 벌써 속 차탐치 나 선상화라고 샘송 제가 나와 탐지라고 샘송 제열이 들이 락벌에 들이랑 루이데랑 나서 차대요래 들이 가자 찍디 주일 사속 샘지에서 루그 속 차번 것들이 톱스서 사속 샘지요래 사속 샘지를 고서 십대 주방매가 이 차로 들 샘대고 세는 것들이 내배봐 보통 좁아대 라지 차요 거요래 들이 뉴바들이 세 약합으로 난 들이 조마조마 촉다 촉바지리 조고조모니나 들이 세만 들던 촉바장 촉바가래 딴 유모 봐지 유모 봐 마음이 봐대 이시 마음이 봐대 유모 봐지 가리 마음인데 다지니 마음이 봐래 다지 니 매와라 다지 니지 마음이 다지 니 차연 거요래 매서 다지 니 매와 하고 그래 그냥 샘도 말했어 말씀 좋아 삼세를 걸어 되고 자기 요리스 티 하고는 다지 그래서 나와 통제라는 거 샘들이 같이 막나라고 세대적 말했어 남께까지 세고 차려래지 내가 문화지 잡으러 세비바지 하고서들이 다 하고 이렇게 곰 잡고 피운 그런 송리 탈도는 저도 시에그요래 탈적 something tun속나 감성 가면 만나서 소시는 동제성 내 동제성 뒤에도 가사적 곰 잡으나 감성 생기는 때문에 그냥 좋아되어 저기 차용 거리 저런 때 가다 또 지쳐온 거는 쉬운 거요래 대다와 대도 유무 받기는 대선의 양기용을 대회는 유무 쭉 받으면 유무 쭉 줘서는 쉽지 참새고는 양로거리 산속 쉽지 하고도 대로 하고는 들이 가자 등아 라이 랑지 나 라이서를 나이서 받대요 말이 나진이요 말이 뒤전에 들이 쉽지 참새 사바체베 바우나 뒤는 벌써 속차 참새를 하는 정도로 그래서 나이도 받다는 들이 대회는 들이랑 가와서는 랑두고 말이 문에 가라데 벌써 속차 먹고 사거리 뒤따라더니 사주고 눈에를 대당해서 정말 니마저 가라 맞아 무서워서 속에 톡발하고 통고리 난 속차를 힘기지는 통고를 뺏기다 들 강자 찍어 줄들이 가르치는 들이 다들 사사는 사는 여당 가르고나 탐지 사를 걸는 정도를 들이 다들 법안이 있잖아 다들 가자 가르 내 사람들이 들이 내 도저지 랑 평감 사람들이 시작이 요래 나와 초와서들 초와 톡들더니 이렇게 요래 뭔가 이 시간을 되는 미리 시간을 매일 대시형을 뒤에 봐 탐색을 때는 타톡 노도 책망 고속을 말이 노도 책 가리지 나 삼바등 이제 산속샘 째라 포카 나가 소차 탐색을 산속샘 째로래 대마트들이 세시 같은 신을 대삼질 째로요래 했잖아 잡지는 미니 다운을 되는 미니 저런 거를 똑바로 돌게 대로 랑을 여담 콜로된 조인 살람스 들지 대또니 그 하고는 나이메마 하고 들이더니 다들 심지에서 이제 세명이 내지는데 무슨 속차 삼면서 안 저러다 dem초를 쩔었어 되게 다다선버도 마다 봐도 누네 리센이 딱 봐면 내가 니딘 것처럼 로브를 좀 때문에 들이 다긴 있었지 때리니 뭐 뭐보다 재미있네 들이 찾으나 다들 이제 나한테 조금 매기서나 나지 님이서 탄지 시작한 거들이 레레저 살롱던 거 말이 때들 따라니 도 내용을 들이 라니 토만 적대요 그래서 로드 처박가리 나지 이제 장 너무 다 장을 산속생지체 들이 산속생지 근데 산속생지 걔는 다요 말이 삼바 재밌게 가려 다요 말이 들이 나진님을 들이 돈하고 대받는 내용을 돈하고 대받는 들이 참아 나진님의 차음을 들이 문에 라리도 나그 공잡 셈 삼바들 이제 돈이 이제 손도 주고 따오는 대들은 속차 참아들 문에 라리샤 제가 대비 맞이 가리 밤이 그서는 딱 나가 사고도 맞고 사 들이 나이스를 박차죠 들이 차과다 당와시 몰라 차 뭐냐면 당 차당 이제 눈치에 봐 박차요 뭐래 데라비에 탑침부터 따침보는 거 별로 사고 막네 바라티니 잡동 총포스 집에다가 만나서 집에다가 이제 말이야 somebody 이게는 네 봐서지 대서 때 인정도 없어 대다고 하고 때도 지는 거 돌아는 게나 딱딱 되는 거요래 저렇게 일만 지치면 망수에 들이랑 나도를 받아들이는 거 도움하거나 다다 같이 대통령에 대야고 신야고 요래지.
So yesterday we stopped at that verse, Mr. Yiram deity. So we said, so the deity of the mandala the primordially perfected Yidam, the deity of the mandala. So we said that the deity is primordially established, perfected. And so also we briefly mentioned yesterday the nature of our aggregate sense sources and the elements. And we spoke about the connection between the outer 5 elements that make up the universe. And on the inner level, we have the 5 afflictive emotions. And secretly, there are the 5 wisdoms. But we didn't speak in much detail about the aggregates yesterday. So whatever Vajrayana practice one engages in, whether it belongs to the new or the old tantric system, there are explanations on the aggregates, elements, and the sense sources in all the tantric teachings. So, for example, it is said that the aggregates are the Buddhas, the male dhyani Buddhas, and then the objects, the sense objects, are the female Buddhas, and the sense sources, and then the objects are the male and the female bodhisattvas, and then the brains and joints are the male and female wrathful ones, and so on. So now what this is I'm speaking about here is basically the body and the mind of one person. And Milarepa had said, I have the instruction where eating and drinking becomes a tok offering, a Gana Chakra offering. So how is that? It is normally when we offer a Gana Chakra offering, there are different kinds of guests, like the 4 kinds of guests that we invite to the food offering, such as the Dakas and Dakinis and the Buddhas and so forth. And so there are all these divinities, these deities that are making offerings too. But you might wonder, where really are all these deities? And sometimes people also ask about where these deities actually are. So what these deities actually are ultimately is that they are the pure quality of one's own mind. That is all those deities. And it is the love and the compassion arising within this pure aspect of the mind. That is the deity. So eating and drinking becomes a Gana Chakra offering. So when you eat food normally, you think that it's just me eating food. And that's because you perceive your body as this one, like, singular, solid, concrete thing. But actually, in reality, your body is composed of millions and billions of little life forms, of microorganisms. That was taught by the Buddha himself in the scriptures. And also nowadays, that is something that is discovered by various scientists. Scientists speak about different kinds of bacteria or microorganisms in our bodies. They say that there are some life forms or microorganisms that are beneficial, and then others are harmful. And so similarly in the teachings it says that there are some like life forms that bring happiness and some that bring suffering. For example, when you have an upset stomach or so, and actually I myself had an ailment in my stomach before, and then that's when they told me it's because there is this kind of bug in there, this kind of bacteria in there that is causing that discomfort, this sickness. And so then they explained to me there is good bugs and bad bugs in your body. And these bugs or these microorganisms are extremely subtle. Just like the smallest atomic particle, like of a water particle. And then when we look into the waters, for example, in the oceans, there are all kinds of different life forms in there too. There's microscopic life forms, and then there's very large life forms. But the essence of their mind, of their life force, is one and the same. They're really all the same. And so they all consist of aggregates, sense sources, and the elements. And for the aggregates, we have said that there are 5 different aggregates. And normally it is explained that the actual nature of the 5 aggregates are the 5 Buddha families, the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, and they also correspond in the impure, immature state to the 5 afflictive emotions. So there are many explanations in the Tantras about the 5 aggregates in relation to the 5 afflictive emotions, but we can say in brief that as long as the mind is in an immature state, there are the 5 afflictive emotions, and these then manifest as the 6 realms of samsara. And then externally, there are the 5 elements, and in their true nature, they are the 5 female Buddhas, the 5 Dakinis. So the coming together of body and mind is what creates this human body. And this human body consists of not just one solid thing, but it is made up of many countless microorganisms, many different life forms. And ultimately still, it is said that all appearances are one's own mind. Everything is the reflection of one's own mind. So you think that this body, it's me, it's my body. But actually, because there's all these life forms in your body, if you give rise to bodhicitta, then all these hundreds and thousands of microorganisms in an instant also give rise to bodhicitta. And in an instant, that will cause them to become peaceful, and they will calm down and will not cause any trouble. So as a result of that, then you will experience physical and mental well-being, will be free of disease, and live a long life, just naturally. On the other hand, if the mind is afflicted, then that leads to conflict, whether externally or internally. Externally, afflictive emotions lead to conflict between countries, for example. And then in a more smaller scale, it leads to conflict between friends, like a boyfriend and a girlfriend. The reason why they don't get along, why there is disharmony, is because of afflictive emotions. And that is the immature state of mind. When it matures, then these afflictions mature into primordial wisdom. But why is it that the mind is in an immature state? It's because of fundamentally grasping at a duality of self and other. So we cling to the belief of a true existence of a self that does not actually exist. And when the mind matures, one realizes that self and other are not separate. You realize that even though we appear to be two, our mind is really one and the same. And because our minds are the same, if I develop love, then the other person will also feel happy. So again, all appearances are one's own mind. No matter how many appearances there may be in the universe, they all are one's own mind. Nothing is separate from one's own mind. Wherever space pervades, the mind pervades. And so when we know that and we pray and we practice, then a real benefit will come from that. So you begin, if you're a person who has understood this view and then meditates and gives rise to the 4 immeasurables, an actual benefit of meditation will arise from that. And I always mention this quotation from the Great Liberation Sutra that speaks about the benefit of meditation. So it says that it is of a greater benefit to meditate for a single session in a state of meditative concentration than it is to liberate the lives of all sentient beings in the 3 realms of samsara. So a person who meditates brings benefit to all the sentient beings in the 3 realms. That person pervades them with their own feeling of bliss and happiness, and that will cause the ice block of those sentient beings to melt at least somewhat. However much these ice blocks will melt also depends on the level of that meditator's practice. So then, of course, again, afflictive emotions arise, and then again we meditate. But since all afflictive emotions are the same, so in other words, there's only really one afflictive emotion, if we liberate one of our own afflictive emotions, then that will make the weight of afflictions in all sentient beings become that much lighter. So this is the view to be understood. And if you understand this view, you understand the significance of giving rise to bodhicitta. And so then, when from within that state you gain the confidence of being the deity, in that moment then there is no concept of an I. There is no concept of self and other. So when immeasurable love and compassion for all sentient beings arises, then all those like microorganisms, this bacteria and so on in your body, they all become that. They all develop these four immeasurables, and they all become the deity. And that is because there is, in your mind, there is no grasping at a self. And all of these life forms also are a reflection of your own mind. So the point to be understood is that there is not one solid me. So, for example, when you're eating food, actually, it is all these microorganisms, these many life forms that are eating, and which is also why when we hold a Nyune retreat, for example, where we don't eat for an entire day, and then the following day after not having eaten, when we conclude the practice in the early morning, we eat very light soup. And that is that we do actually having in mind all these countless microorganisms in our bodies. And so if you meditate, when you meditate and visualize and have this confidence that I am the idam deity, then all the microorganisms in your body turn into the mandala deities. There are many explanations on that in, for example, the Vajrakilaya practice and also in the Chakra Samvara practice that explain the nature of the aggregates, elements, and the sense sources. For example, the nature of the eye consciousness and the ear consciousness and so forth. We have 6 consciousnesses. And then also it is explained that when the 5 afflictive emotions mature, they mature into the 5 wisdoms. So when you look at all of these explanations, there are so many words and it's hard to understand all of these words. But what is the ultimate meaning that we have to take from all these explanations? It is that if I give rise to bodhicitta, to love and compassion, then all these microorganisms in my body will also give rise to bodhicitta. And so, moreover, if I give rise to the confidence of being a deity, then they will all become that as well. So, for example, it is like your aggregates and elements and sense sources, your whole being is like an ocean. And if you add a medicinal substance into the water, then the entire water becomes pervaded by the medicine. But also if you pour some poison into it, then it all becomes pervaded by poison. And so now when you practice the yidam, you think at once, I really am the yidam chakra samvara. And you give rise to this awareness from the state of emptiness, knowing that there is no real me that actually exists. So the deity arises from a state of selfless, immeasurable compassion for all sentient beings. And then, if it arises from such a state, then all the microorganisms in your body become really the mandala deities. They become the chakra samvara deities. And now there's all, now the scientists also speak about all these impure and pure life forms in our body, and all these impure like bacteria and so on in the body also appear that way, just like our body itself, due to the temporary obscuration, which is the obscuration of dualistic grasping. It is to believe in the concrete true existence of self and other. And so today, if I now engage in practice, I practice calm abiding, the mind calms down, there's no self-grasping, then that the self-grasping, the affliction in all these life forms will diminish. And so there is no need to think about each and every one of them and how they all become that. But that is just it spontaneously happens because that is already their primordial nature. So since beginningless time already, that is your and this life form's true nature. We are just obscured by adventitious stains, and those are the stains of dualistic grasping. And to clear it away, we first have to clear away, purify the grasping at a self. And that is cleared away through bodhicitta. First, the relative bodhicitta. When that arises, there is no thought of a self. When immeasurable love for others arises, there is no concept of a self. And then eventually, through habituating to this view of non-duality, you arrive at the ultimate truth and then actually realize non-duality and actually realize how you are the deity. And so now if you practice this, then you should gain the confidence that when I abide in the state of emptiness and compassion, then I am the deity, and therefore all the microorganisms in my body are also the deity. That is how it is when everything becomes matured. And as long as we are not matured, there are the afflictive emotions and those harmful life forms. And also again, when you're eating food, don't think it's just me eating food, because in this way, as we keep thinking I'm doing this and that, we continue to place these karmic imprints, these habitual imprints of me into our mind. And in this way, we reinforce the afflictive emotions of attachment and aversion. For example, then you become attached to a good tasting, delicious food, and you have an aversion against food that doesn't taste good. And so in this way, non-stop, continuously, we are placing imprints into our mind. So when you understand this, you really see the preciousness, the importance of practicing the deity. And so coming back to Milarepa's quote, so Milarepa said, so this is the instruction of eating and drinking, becoming a Gana Chakra soak offering. And then also he said, and then there is the instruction for dreaming to become the practice of luminosity. And so when you understand this, you see the power that can arise from the deity practice, the visualization of the deity. And all of this reasoning actually corresponds a lot to what present-day scientists are discussing with each other. Most scientists actually agree with that, and it's basically the same thing that we are saying. And so what scientists say, and then that really corresponds to the reasoning of the Buddha's teachings. And some people have maybe some doubt about this, that there is actually this connection. And for this reason, it would be really excellent to understand this point.
There's leisure tang yore, leisure ka sama nyamsel jo there's a kako yore, shep chimomen, ha yuma there's a leisure or yumbari. The kang the Pinchi Georgia Asisha, Paul Pebdutini, Rotar Chisabo, Chupachi, Pebure, Pebdutini, Go Atisha Bolata, Chutan, Tata Karikari, to the Bola, Namchu Karikari or something. The lots of our chance of walking, Salmag, Jude, some Jude, 데라서 같은 리 이제 냠슬이 다 주주세가 참아 야 슈테니 하하 다 체다운 개발 창다운 개발나 그뭘 백고사 말해서 들이제서 들이지니 다직 좋아지도 가을이 이 잡지 냠을 가지는 거래서 냠슬이 백값 갈리 적지지 들로타는 시선 보게 오다 쥐제 탑들이 이제 저기 많이 봤더니 리리게 냠슬인 거래 좀 대휴디 야 다들 봐서 다 공패고도 이 강에들 쥐제 탑지 다통데 찍도 들리는 냠슬인 거래 동쪽을 잘 타고 되어지 송이들이 뒤 동쪽도 절록다 가래 배나 얘는 뒤 동쪽도 절록들이 있다 마 뇽마거들이 사마게 주대지 뭐지 네 냠슬 링보 가면 라적도 마 적을스네 되니 마 뇽마게 니정이라 이제서 되니 가면 냠슬면 냠용을 되니 거를 보지 다 다시 마사만 냠슬 냠용을 되니 거를 보지라는 것들이 또 속초고 제라서 막아 제르더니 티 냠슬 노는 이렇게 갑질라서 봤더니 공부한테 또 대체들이 얌전히 이제 이나 이제서 이나 이제서 가리들 이나 이제 가리들 님바한테 변하더니 다다 마사마 주디나 따와 고발라 정인이 주선도 차게 마다바가로 된데 우리들이 마님마가 니바 드바 두친소 대제 공수주의 기체즈바 강은 저기 요리 되는 변하더니 다른 깨름을 거는 또뭐 깨름이란 거 곰마곰 곰로 뒤들은 자네들 깨름나 거는 송요리 깨름을 거들이 얘나게 오 냠니 탐지 라곰바티 소 라곰바게 누보 가래 마다와리도 마다와디 누보 땡땡이도 땡땡이 제절라서 와송들 거는 뭐지 소 제절 중 리트리자 그래도 이나 위에 공부하지 몇 바타자 잘들이 송들이 몇 바를 거들 송들 들이 니버들들이 다와 같은 다고 공부하서 그마게 영저당 한 코르텔라서 따라미 공터와서 다와 같은 다와들 다와서 간통데 구조요만 제도 차라미 남산 공터와들 지까지 대람서 공터를 다좀 니바들 송서 니와 치바들이 감밀에 corta고 공부하서 감밀에 corta를 들이다 부처가 매디 요래들이지 만나는 타질 거 그런 단어 콜고베 다다랑 콜베 니뭐 콜 니와 니버가는 나데 마음으로 콜로들이 감밀에 corta고 공부하서 그 마음콜데 당복가래 콜들이 지서 다 뜨거지 상을 로 샘데 상 때에 되는 적이 나 코르텔한테 샘 제가 가리비 찾고 요리들은 그래서 콜로리 야잖아 오단 콜로 doctor 트리텔 샘때 지속고요 말이야 콜로들이 콜로도 냠도 샘도 오요다 콜로도 냠도 샘도는 빼는 저다 진짜 제모지지 콜로지 대고를 수명을 자 수명을 가영네 들고 가영도 이 속차 탐제는 이 가영도 뭐 수명을 가영 거리 준비 가리들 코속차 세야지 그쪽 없어 차지 세도요 되는지 이 속차라고 통들이 가영 수명 검달을 들은 콜로지 세치 되고래 이 미고 소는 마지는 마 코티는 아들이 제진 잠을 요래데 자응할때 니바니니 라서가 제비만 거요래 한 코티 때치고나 그렇게 다 보가래 코티 양도 코 들이 좀 탈들이 제일 공소는 몇가만 소바서더니 남도 쪽과나기 코는더니 막을 자드더니 남도 쪽과들 자도 메시 따에 나랑 빼때 빼야고도 헬리콥터 컬러된 거로 하고 진짜 컬러 통으면 컬러는 통나 라빠자 답들 컬러 요리 되는 와와와 자르다 마저랑 자송다 들때 컬러들랑 자들들 마 자동을 들때다 마그랑 자들들이 마그랑 마코 고백감이다 사족 새끼 거니 들이 체비바 제고는 다 삼바데 삼바다 되게 되겠다 고고듯이 한국도 자들이 같이 참나들이 되다 자들이 어제는지 어제 쪽들이 잡고 번양지 받다고 공부하서 당고 나쁜 공부 받은 나를 때서 코아들이 어제 쪽들이 네반이 봐서 네반이 봐 다 두바리 이 어제 쪽들이 잡고 번양지 받다고 들어봐서 잡고 번양지 받게 어제들이 어제 은혜에서 가야 세부제의 내용을 대언이 생고만 대바치다 저는 드리시 함탐치는 주바로 공고요래 이 생고만 은혜 형 탁과를 세지 동해 싸움했더니 동해 대응을 여제 동해 되는 배나 동해들이 또 삼바 수지 터지 파마이브 삼바 데르티는 삼바를 뛰는 이제요래 오십지 터지 파마마 되어 직접 매사 때문에 민지 기대는 별다가 답을 로봇을 매셔는 배디동에 센터로 거를 같이 대hin지 요가 따라야 돼. 같이 스지지는 동에 가세요는 초학하려면 다시 다 줘보면 hin지 요거 말이 hin지면 시합 매지 시합 hin지를 지어야 돼. 마크 보고를 hin지 오나 너만하니 오마토미를 연거래 배티에서 hin지를 뛰는 시합 돼. 그래서 바로 펜도 딱 제통을 그래서 제가 생고만 대파라 뛰는 애들이 대파라 뛰는 거를 강리 생고만 펜이고는 생고만 같더니 산속세고 저 펜고를 대회들이 또 생고만 쏘하던 초밥을 생고만 삼지들랑 거 쳤던데고 생고만 대생고만 삼지들이 또 어떻게 심지를 가리고 그랬다 심지를 삼지를 거래 이 가리고 심지 탑지 누구에게 잡아 단지에 색소를 거서 이제 사지에 다 septi 타는 문이 피고 다 삼hin지 고도 거서 삼hin지 오늘 거서 이제 사지에 차롱도 그래 차롱도 저거는 니마고 그래 니마고는 니마다고 다 삼hin지 다 소소 니지 너가면 딱 쨌다면 니지 째는 문이 피고 그래 좋아요 말이지 니지 맞지라다 대답은 못 봤어 못 배줘 봐서 그랬더니다가 이제 뭐고 프로그램 잡아놔서 잠도 셈지 솔데 세나양 뭐고 이제ตึก내 맞지 책도 완전 주주 기존나 세로스를 이제 토마케라지 다시 이걸 못 봤어 제가 저 마부를 패기면 다다다다랑 팽이 빈도 총고요래 대다고 저 땡이서 일하지 그만 그래 잡고 번야지 봤다고 들어 어제 좀 더지 생고만 줘봐 생고만 좀 르바종 송사 르바종을 가래 포탐지 유리진에서 사바들 이제 속서는 포탐지 진에서 저 송사 모탐지 유리 삼니지시나 나그 단디들이 이제 로만 저 송사 탐지 샤 저 송사 이제 그것도 샤야만 내가 차그런데 저 송사네 그래서 다 나와 샤지 샤지 강 동가리지 저거 나가 자다고 들었더니 그러다 나시 탑지 다 정한나는 접성성 대리 조반 직진수 강의에서는 대다와 하고서 전했더니 파마타 예단 도덕선 파마타 예단 도덕선 직도 똑고 남절라 인피제 조도 사자매지 나다도 겁지나 신지 타바바 직자요 말이 왜 말이 타마더니 파마 예단 도덕선 버쩌리 타마살 줘서는 그 참말이 담사는 저도 그래. 데이터를 하고 그것도 단지 매나 그것도 사발라 그래지. 자로셔서 참말 처리해 싸움서는 다 나시 딱바랑 장 제저 땀마다 바짝장만 독서 노를 문에서 무섭세. 다 데려드는 것이 신진념이 제만 뭐 대통령 동자능지 여름이 매드 동문이 신인 도와줘. 이 송송 때라서 요 말이지. 내가 로버를 준 것에 차송서 이 동시바당 들이 동시바라 들이대는 게 냠들이 사바당 내지가 네봐 저랑 당고 사바당 지랑 맞지 이 사바당 이제 그 생기 류종 류생지들이 다 되는 이제는 고소를 사바당 이제 레다 들이 다 고소 상지리요 봐 그렇게 되는 이제들이 다 되고요 대답을 하고서는 들이 다 들이 뭔가 찾았다고 공부하더니 참 제일 나와라 잡아나 대나 녀마간 동바지들 말링 치지 되니 장 페퍼감이 이 독자 돌아 졸더니 the take the somebody Nanda Rexum Langa Chukungan Gotang Yi Roman Jamle Bad Saftan Namder Tim Yamina Yemi took the show. So this Melancholy General Pepper Josatola better. Data Namder Wakata Tamji Tahoton Shi, then answer Lang. Then answer Long at the Data top Ramatop. Data will have one not new muddy. Donna Judicial Jetty, flat to the magic of concert the Villa. That's a party. This is also John the Martin Yazab Yazab Carricker. Young to do Guruboti. Should have the new body. Young to separate. The get up to my Yazab song. The teacher or Ed. Dawa Garchen Rinpoche, Dawa Kamatala or Gudamati, Niba, Nakorman Konogore, Nakorman Konosaw, Dawa Garchen Gomba, Niba. The little Tangami Lekota, Tangima, and Coron Jore, Coron Gami Lekota Gomba, Never Nibate. The little mountains and drop on Coron, Japu Ponyanji Bata Gomba, drop a hassle. Jabu Ponyanji Battery, Shankoman, Chupa, and Shawman, the Dong Yang Dog or it. Axon. The Poma Sajita Gomade, Drama Johnson, the thought I've done it, Drama Savaks, long, Thomas Larry. Now I thought that is doing Melancholy, Sumba teacher. The Nancy Hacker Coaches or Dodgy Delco, or Thomas Larry, to whom they sent you some Mazopson. The Quashargora, or Tontan Young May Zeona, de Matopa Casa, or Garisi, Tate, cut on Maris, simply told you that it was on the young mission, the Carade, Tatum Yoris. Don't ship a Casa, oh, 17th of the jelly subject of this Sajay, the Tate of us. Oh, that's the man, that is. Oh, 2 minutes, he kicked on my dogs. Oh, that's a Hoa Tong doctor, don't say so. Tamila as the song. Hoa Tong talks about it. The Mount Wallaching Hoa the Saturday is there by the Hoa Jermeva Hako, Hoa Tong talk about the so the Margaret this song to Tamila. Hoa Tong talks about the stairs. Hoa Tong get it together when he gets it to like it. Don't mean Hoa Meva, they don't go Tahako. They got in Hassa and you bought do good, not you might do already. I did that, you like you do already. They thought to go to pick up Jerry Shake already. Captain Gordon, she was told me they're also already.
So we spoke about yesterday mainly about the new tantric system. And so where we spoke about the connection between these sets of 4, like the 4 kinds of attachment and the 4 levels of joy and the 4 yogas and the 4 empowerments and so forth. And so today I'm going to speak more about the Nyingma, the old tantric system of the Vajrayana. So there is a slight difference as in the old tantric system is somewhat easier to practice. It is more difficult to practice the new tantric system. It's much more complex, especially if one is not very intelligent, has not much wisdom. So I'll tell one story first. So in the old days, when Lord Atisha visited Tibet, he had the Lotsawa Rinchen Zangbo, the translator Rinchen Zangbo, there who was from Tibet to attend him. And so Atisha, when he came to Tibet, he first wanted to know, he asked the Lotsawa, so like what kind of dharma do you have in Tibet, and what kind of tenet systems and philosophical schools and so on, what kind of practices do you have in Tibet? And then the Lotsawa Rinchen Zangbo responded. So then he explained in much detail. So we have the new tantric system, and then within that we have the 4 classes of tantra and so forth. And then he explained each of these different divisions and classes of tantra. And so then Atisha says, well, if there is a great scholar in Tibet like yourself, then there's really no need for me to come here, actually. But I have one more question. And then the Lord Sava said, so what is it? And so Atisha said, so how do you practice all of these different classes of Tantra and so on? And so then the Lord Sava said, well, you have to practice each of them separately. There's a distinct way of practicing them all. And so then Atisha said, oh, maybe it's good that I came to Tibet. Because actually, all of these different classes of Tantra need to be brought into a single essence. So one needs to know how to skillfully practice the essence of all of them. So one needs to be able to condense all of these different practices. And so how can we do that? How to do that is actually according to the old tantric system. And this is what Guru Rinpoche had done. He took the newest bread of which is called the new tantric system, and he condensed them into their essence, so they become actually convenient to practice. And so in the old tantric system, we find the Guru Rinpoche put these various classes of tantras and practices together into the form of the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. And he did that on the basis of his own personal experience. And so he had gained the personal experience also of the new tantric practices. For example, when he was enduring many hardships in the 8 charnel grounds and so forth, where he accomplished the 8 rugas, or the 8 logos, and so forth, and many other places. And then he realized how to bring all these deities and mantras into a single one, into a single essence. And that then was called the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. So the first branch is called the approach, which is like an unmoving kind of static, like a moon disk that is luminous. So first, when you practice the approach, you bring to mind, for example, the mantra garland, and so now in the new tantric system there are like many other divisions, such as the view and so forth. So there's many different divisions, and so Guru Rinpoche condensed them into this kind of convenient way. So anyways, so for one person to practice in a practical way. So now when we practice the approach stage, you practice any Yidam deity, and you recite that Yidam deity's mantra. And for the mantra, you visualize the mantra garland. And the essence of the mantra recitation is the mental state of samadhi, meditative concentration, where the mind is focused. So then Guru Rinpoche also explained the essence of deity yoga, or the visualization and mantra recitation, in terms of the 4 nails which are applied during the practice of the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. And so the main aspect, the main quality of those 4 branches is that one only focuses on visualization. That is the main part. So now, again, in the first step of the approach, you visualize the mantra garland, very vivid and very clear, like a moon disk, surrounded by static, a star garland. And so then you visualize that very clearly until you are able to have that appear in your mind vividly in visibility. So then you have accomplished the approach. Then after that, you move on to the close approach, the second stage. And so at the second stage, and so first you have had this like static, unmoving garland. Then the second stage becomes like the star garland, that begins to move slowly. And so here, again, you are focused on the visualization, and there are different levels of mantra too. There is the essence mantra and the quintessence mantras and so forth. And so you begin to first slowly turn or kind of rotate that mantra garland. So once it is stable, it begins to rotate slowly, and just like a prayer wheel. And then you see how the mind is connected to it. So the mind follows the rotation. So the mind goes along with the rotation of the mantra garland. So, for example, if I have a prayer wheel that isn't moving, then the mind is also not really there. But when I'm turning the wheel, then the mind kind of follows it and keeps going around together with the wheel. And so similarly, as you begin to rotate the mantra garland, the mind follows it. So the mind is focused on the rotation. The mind becomes that rotation. Actually, Rinpoche said, I've seen in the West, there is this kind of game, how you call it, where you kind of, you spin it, and then it keeps turning, right? There's this kind of toy. And actually, I've observed that a cat actually can really focus on that. The cat is completely mesmerized by that toy, that spinning toy, and completely undistracted and just like staring at that spinning toy. And so the reason why the cat's doing that, actually it's only the cats who do that, no other animals can do that. But the reason why the cat is doing that is because it thinks that that spinning toy is another animal, is a prey. So the cat really wants to kill that spinning toy, and so it's stalking the toy and just is mesmerized by it and focuses single-pointedly. So basically, that's just how the mind becomes when we focus on the rotation of the mantra garland that turns continuously, starting first to turn very slowly, and then once you have habituated to that, then eventually it accelerates, and in the end, it turns so fast that you can no longer perceive it visually. It is just like the engine in an airplane, in an airplane wing. I've seen that myself, and I thought that's a great example, because first you can see the wheel, and then of the engine of the airplane, and then when it spins so fast, you can no longer actually see the wheel, but you can hear the sound. So the wheel gives off a natural sound, and it begins with this humming sound, and then it accelerates, and then all you see, you see nothing, but you just hear this humming, this accelerated kind of increasingly louder humming of the airplane engine. And so that is actually very similar to the natural sound of the mantra. When the mantra begins to spin fast, then you can no longer see it, but it emits a natural sound, just like the engine in an airplane. So this is what you habituate to at the second stage. And so then also, now we've said we develop samadhi, and so then this samadhi then leads to the third step, which is the accomplishment. And so it is based on the samadhi of love. So it is built on bodhicitta. And then, so you have visualized this mantra garland that's spinning very fast. And then out of your samadhi of love, then arise from this, because of your samadhi of love causes light rays to be sent forth from the spinning mantra garland. So then light rays are sent forth and are gathered back. And this is similar to a king dispatching his messengers. So again, to summarize, in the first step, you visualize the mantra garland, unmoving. In the second step, the close approach, the first is approach, then in the close approach, you begin to slowly rotate the garland until it accelerates very fast. And then in the third step, which is the accomplishment, then from this fast rotation, light rays are sent forth and gathered back. And so when these light rays are sent forth, they first pervade all the higher beings, and these light rays of love then become rays of devotion, and these then make offerings to all the Buddhas, the higher beings abiding in the Pure Lands. So then you focus on that single-pointedly. And then the light rays gather back the great compassion of all these Buddhas, and then again are sent out to reach all sentient beings. And then the light rays become light rays of immeasurable love. So here then you should bring to mind the suffering of all sentient beings and think that all sentient beings have been my parents. So love arises for them, and then from love arises compassion. A compassionate person, for example, if a person has compassion and they hear that fire, for example, has broken out in some other distant place, some city, when they hear about that, immediately it affects them, and the suffering comes to them. And that is a sign of their compassion. Whereas other people, no matter of how much suffering of sentient beings they hear, they could care less. They don't really don't feel anything special when they hear about all kind of things happening in the world. And that is because they consider themselves as most important and therefore are unable to give rise to compassion. And if there is no compassion, then also wisdom cannot arise. So wisdom arises out of compassion. For example, if a mother loves her child, because a mother loves her child, the milk naturally flows from her breasts without any effort involved. So you should really analyze that, think about the benefits of cultivating love. And so now coming back to the light rays, when these rays of love are directed to the higher beings, then they become an offering. And when directed to the lower beings, they become those light rays of bodhicitta that purify obscurations. So first, when these light rays touch upon the Buddhas, make offerings, the light rays then gather back the great love of all the Buddhas. And then the power of that great love is then sent to all sentient beings. And what is it that sentient beings really need? Sentient beings really need love. Why do they suffer? The root of their suffering is self-grasping. And then you will finally understand that when I give rise to love, that naturally eliminates the cause of their suffering, the root of their suffering. So this is how you eliminate their suffering. And when you really understand this, you can see that you will gain confidence that I can actually bring great benefit to sentient beings. I need to love them. And then finally, you begin to melt the ice block of sentient beings. To melt an ice block, you need sun. And love and compassion is like the sun. So you should really reflect on that. If you reflect on that and really understand, then the benefit that will come from that is certain. It's unfailing. So right now, we do want to bring about this benefit, but it's more of an aspiration. And Jamgyal Kongtrul also has said in Calling the Guru from Afar, that even though we take refuge and we cultivate, we arouse the mind of bodhicitta and so forth, the words that we utter are mere words of aspirations. And aspirations are excellent, but they do not actually accomplish a great purpose of beings. So we do have an aspiration toward virtue and toward benefit beings, and if it's just like an aspiration, then there might be some minor, momentary benefit from that, but it's a very small benefit compared to what actually can be accomplished. So again, the light rays, which is the third step, the accomplishment, is like the king dispatching his messengers and dispatching the light rays. First, we make offerings to the higher beings, and then we purify the obscurations of the sentient beings with compassion. And so then what happens when their obscurations are purified? Then they all develop love and compassion. And all the males, for example, the men who cultivate love and compassion then become Chenrezig, and all the females that develop love and compassion become Tara, as all the self-grasping is melting away. So all beings then become the deity. Think in this way when you send forth the light rays. Think that now all the ice blocks have been melted and all beings are the deity, all appearance is the deity. So that is the third step of sending forth the light rays and gathering them back. So at the end of that, you meditate on the entire universe and all beings as a pure land and the deities. Also, Jigten Sumgön had said that, so when one understands all of this, that he said, I am a yogin who has realized that my parents, the Yidam, and the 6 classes of beings are one. And in this way, the altruistic benefit of others is accomplished effortlessly. So actually, what the Vajrayana also teaches is that ultimately there are no ordinary sentient beings, so no real sentient beings actually exist. The 6 classes of beings are really the Yidam deity. It is just that now they are obscured by self-grasping, but the moment that self-grasping is cleared away, they all really are the deity. When all the ice blocks have melted, then everything is pure in its natural state. Then everything that appears and exists is a vast expanse, an infinite expanse of purity. And in reality, there is nothing whatsoever that is impure. Everything is pure by nature. There are many people who practice Yamantaka, and in the Yamantaka practice, it says, ultimately, no real object of compassion exists. So the 3 lower realms, the 6 realms of samsara and so forth, do not inherently exist. They are only a temporary obscuration. So some practitioners really understand that. And because of that, then they are able to develop immeasurable love and compassion. So there are no real sentient beings. And so because of that, when you understand that, a practitioner who knows that, the reason why they can develop love and compassion then, although there is no real object of compassion, is because they understand that all sentient beings can attain enlightenment. They have the potential to attain enlightenment. And that gives them the confidence of benefiting them, because then they can be benefited. All of this is just a temporary obscuration. And so this is how you can gain certainty in the practice instead of developing many doubts. So if you understand that, then you will see that everything is the deity. Everyone is the deity. As it is said, all appearances are the deity. All sounds are the mantra. All thoughts are the dharmakaya. In fact, in the old days, there was the master Minling Chichen, who, when he passed away, he was actually sitting on his throne, and he said these 4-liner, which is 4 lines in Tibetan, and then he passed away. So what he said is that appearances are the deity, sounds are the mantra, and thoughts are the play of primordial wisdom. I'm a yogin whose awareness abides indivisible from these 3 kind of vajras. And having said this, then he passed away in that moment. So that is, for example, a sign of someone who has attained complete accomplishment. And so when one understands that and practices that in this way, one will also attain such accomplishment and like freedom of the mind. So again, we have the old and the new tantric system. In the new tantric system, we have the have 4 classes of Tantra, and then in the old Tantric system, the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment, and that condenses the 4 classes all into one mantra and one deity. And also, actually in the Jigong Kagyu, we have the Dzogchen teachings, and the Jigong teachings are the Yangzab teachings, and Yangzab means literally utterly profound, like profundity upon profundity, in other words. So as Guru Rinpoche, for example, had again and again condensed the very essence of the Dharma until it was condensed in its most refined, most profound essence. And so yang means like again, so again profound, in other words, literally. So again and again made more and more profound or condensed into the essence. So these are the first 3 steps. And so then the last one is the great accomplishment, and that is like the humming of a disturbed beehive. So when you disturb a beehive, then you just hear the humming of many bees all over. But more on that later. And so now to kind of bring together all of these quotations we have now mentioned, they all are connected. So we have had the quote, the statement, kind of the verse that was spoken by Minling Chikchen before he passed away. And then yesterday we mentioned a quote by Dhammaraja, the Jigong master, who said, if you realize that all appearance and existence is the deity, and then in the Yamantaka we have said that no real object of compassion exists. So all beings are the deity. There are no real sentient beings. But we have not realized that. And so that is why many doubts often arise in people's minds, and they think that, how can you say that there are no sentient beings, it's all empty, but then we can see sentient beings everywhere. So how come no object of compassion exists? So this doubt may arise, but if you really understand the meaning, then you will instantly think that, well, the Buddha had already determined that, and when the Buddha said all beings are actually Buddhas, and meaning that whoever engages in practice has the potential to become just that. And so that is our true ultimate nature, and in that sense, no real sentient being exists. No real samsara exists ultimately. Also, Jagme Raga Asya had said that now we always say that in the future may there be an end to samsara, but he said that no, it's not in the future. Already now, samsara does not exist inherently. And he said that this is called the enlightened intent of steering samsara from its depths, or emptying samsara. And that is accomplished in an instant. As it is said, in an instant, one is a Buddha, and in an instant, a sentient being. That shows that no real samsara exists ultimately. So in any case, Guru Rinpoche had condensed the new tantric system into the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment of the old tantric system, and also explained that in many different ways, such as in the teachings of the 8 logos or the 8 harukas and so forth.
때 다지 때라 니들이 동 그때 막 요도지 봐지 막 때는 요바 쳐보지 또 이제는 요바 쳐보 요바들이 쪼리 그래서 막 요도지 막 선합지 봐지 선합지 이거 사도로 때는 막 라시 봐되나 때는 막대 엄마는 보면 한국들 길에도 거 레레도 거요래 때 강의들 어서 때니 냐들이 봐보 그랬더니 라들 때봐 당도 있어서 때봐고 엄마는 보면 한국들은 라고마트 생각 찌아치고 건로 하고 요래 집에 이식은 진이 때부터 저게 내 마주고 봤다고 찌아를 때 상태를 들어왔더니 이제 생적 봐요나 내 값들이 가가 차서 저도 저로 가가 저 뒤상태들이 라들 항상들이 로그를 그시 동지되는 마 살시 봐지 나도 정서지 봐, 나 살아지 봐, 나 살시 봐. 들이 주바판나 돈을 소식 좀 가서 탑들이 나 자가 가요나 들이 나 코르트 고데 나 코르니 베는디나 마나다 콜로 파체는 콜로 조도는 지리들 로망이 요래 디들 사 장가지 소식 가서 주바판나 돈을 대타버들이 주바파르고 현장 장미 봐라. 배는 나 사야지 오나 라 사야지 서로를 주바파르고요. 들들이 서로 동지들이 세심지 탐지를 고나들이 다사다. 뒤바 도는 거 평문데 접대세는 따다다. 세지 탐지를 들고서 강에 당대기 종들을 삼흥기를 좀 라도 삼흥기를 하서 그 배들이다. 세계담지 저바동 변 로마도나 그래서 루베를 보답되죠. 노도베를 놀라지서도 와서 저 봐죠. 라는 걸 내가 와서 참으로 로가로 소수들이 누가 박차지 시작한 거죠래. 마다다서 좀도시 봐지. 들마 무덤도 치바잖아. 들이 랑게서 때름 가려고는 들랑하도 여자도 고나 들랑하도 싸워서는 사지름 가래 뭐 가려고 셋도 싸워차 셋도 맞차는 뒤싸고 차는 거요래. 마 무덤도 치바도 용타지 나 장가 다범 가세 다고도지 체 가래. 장가 찍고서 다 쏘서 뭐 장가 찍고서 말해. 장가 대담들 셈때지 많이 봤지나. 들이 세도 잡았다. 너 세고 잡았다 마다 다고래. 라라 니자 저거 라라 기적이 있죠. 라라 로다 다와야 송데 저도들이 송송 말이 마 장가 찍고 상황을 되는 저거 송요 말이 놀라는 세고 몇 봤어 어디서들이 같이 니자 저거 저거래 베테타를 저치바들랑 세무 소화가 하고 그래 가래서나들이 무지매가 돈이 이제서도 돈이 거니 다진이매가 하고네 이 다진이서 나와다 터지 로베 박차에서 들상히지를 따니 돈이 이제 속도 좋고 다 하고서는 다들이 사우스랑 창을 마라시바 마주바시바 마르도드시바 마우드드시바지 들대라서거들이 파핑이 죽어요래 병거요 내가 로라 로시라 로마다 대다고 이제 그래요래 라시바 주바시바 무드드시바 루도드시바 산함스시바지 대다वर तीन माकोर इंग्लिश गम गरे खपोर ते माकोर तीन खोलो ता सो यो लाकोर दे खोलो 치고 또 खोलो 고바 치고서 이제 खोलो ते 저 마고 저요 때 가네 खोलो 때는 통주 제일 셈지 답지 로바테 또 종쪽으로서 나 대다고 신네 들다다디 고바 답지 다 가는 खोलो 요래 들다 무슨 저쪽으로 가서 가는 खोलो랑 하니까 라는 그 순상 사바티니 말이 벨라스다 삼마게 송바탑지게 다 라가 순상을 메시라가 합탁다장 초자와서 뭐만 순상면에 들이래가 가리나 또요 말이 순상 속자 돈으로 받지 뭐게 뒤바 매서 매부 속자 돈으로 받만 매게다 나와져서 매바들이 순상때 딱 봐요 말이스 속체 보여 말이스 소남 속에 접결이 되냐만 이제 잡을 때로 망보요리 대회는 들이다 한코르 고버톱다들이 랑게 데스 랑코르테도 코르치라 삼지는 대회는 들이 소남 속에 저서리 다다르게 피바데와 삼지 저서남 시바데 삼지리 상태를 띠리띠리 때가 잘해다고 따뜻히 콜로그 비용 두시거든 시설만 드린 콜로그 비용 시요래 그 언제 담제 사람 콜로그 와도 때래 나 거기 비용 때래 그 속도는 좀 참조 대조 쪽으로
Then in the secret mantra, in Vajrayana speaks about, when it speaks about the qualities of the mantra, there is a teaching on the 9 benefits and powers of mantra. And just to mention a few of them, so the mantra, one benefit of the mantra is that it purifies obscurations. And so, for example, when you recite the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, we purify obscurations. But how do we actually purify obscurations? So the obscuration that is to be purified is the dualistic, grasping itself and other. Because of dualistic grasping, we develop the 6 afflictive emotions, and then due to various conditions, we accumulate different karma. And how do we purify these obscurations? For example, through the 4 powers of the Vajrasattva practice, and then the mantra recitation. And so that's the first power. The mantra has the power to purify obscurations. The second power is the power, or second benefit is the mantra also is like a blessing. So Buddha nature, when the obscurations have been purified that cover Buddha nature, then one's sight, one's mind becomes clear. It's just like when you're wiping your glasses, then you can see clearly. So when all the obscurations have been purified, there is no more grasping ultimately at self and other. And so regarding the 4 powers whereby we purify the obscurations, the most important one is the power of regret or remorse. And so in this way, then having purified obscurations and then having received blessings, one's mind having been blessed by the mantra, then as a result, Buddha nature becomes increasingly clear. Then the third benefit is the mantra also represents the deity. For example, if you say a mantra, the Mani mantra, like Om Mani Padme Hum, every time you say the mantra, you create, one form of Chenrezig is created. And so then what is accomplished through the Chenrezig Mani recitation, for example? So first you recite the mantra with the 3 kinds of faith, the clear faith, the trusting faith, and the longing faith. And then you recite Om Mani Padme Hum repeatedly, and this faith then becomes an offering. In this way, the mantra turns into an offering to the higher beings, and then it turns into love for all sentient beings. For example, so when you develop love, then when you recite Om Mani Padme Hum and love arises, the mind of Chenrezig, then the higher beings, they know about that with their omniscient mind. And because they love all beings like their only child, you then connect to their love. Because ultimately the basis of our mind is one and the same. Even though it is one and the same temporarily, there seems to be a separation, just like between ice and water. But in this way, we accomplish the deity, and the way it is accomplished is like the miraculous birth, instantaneously. So now we have had the benefit of the purification of obscurations, blessing, and being the deity. Then the 4th benefit is that the mantra also becomes an offering. So the mantra is sent forth into the Pure Lands of the 10 directions, and then makes offerings there. For example, if you're spinning a prayer wheel, then with each rotation, the number of mantras contained in the prayer wheel is sent out to the Pure Lands to make offerings there. For example, nowadays most wheels are filled with the Mani mantra, Chinrezig's mantra, and the Tara mantra. And however many mantras there are in the wheel, they all are sent out with each rotation into the Pure Lands of the 10 directions and the 3 times, and they can make offerings there. That's another power of the mantra. They are able to make offerings to all the Buddhas abiding in the Pure Lands. For example, if the prayer wheel would be filled with 1 million mantras, then with each rotation, 1 million mantras would go out, or Chinrezigs and deities would go out, and then make offerings in all these Pure Lands. And then again, they are sent out to purify the obscurations of all sentient beings. So in this way, the benefit of sentient beings is accomplished through the mantra garland. And so again, how are sentient beings purified? The fault that makes them be a sentient being is self-grasping. And the mantra garland is a representation of the deity, and the deity is an embodiment of love and compassion. So, for example, in the supplication to Tara that speaks about the benefits of Tara practice, it mentions, for example, that all those who practice Tara or recite the mantra will have all their wishes fulfilled. For example, those who wish to acquire wealth will have wealth, those who wish to have a companion will have a companion, those who wish to have a child will have a child, and so forth. And so in this way, she manifests in whichever way necessary to clear away the suffering of all sentient beings in the 6 realms of samsara. So that is the 4th point. And then the 5th benefit is that the mantra also represents the siddhi, which is the accomplishment. So you can visualize whichever deity you're practicing, and then you habituate to this deity and this mantra garland over and over again until it becomes very clear. And then through the power of your your visualization, the mind becomes very clear and purified. And so now when it comes to accomplishing the deity now, actually often we speak about a certain number of mantras to be accumulated. There's a certain number to each mantra, a certain few hundred thousands of times and so on of recitations. And then many people just focus on completing the mantra count. But actually, the number of mantras accumulated is not what's most important. What's most important is the single pointed, undistracted visualization. Focus on the practice, because that is what will purify the obscurations in the mind. So in order to know when you have accomplished a deity, that's what you have to look at. How many of my obscurations have I purified? And when they're all purified, then that's a sign of having accomplished a deity. And so in terms of time, that is accomplished depending on the practitioner. Some accomplish it within a day, within weeks, within months or years. But it is not dependent on the actual mantra count that is completed. So we should not consider that as kind of our measure of accomplishing the deity. Like you accumulate that many mantras and you accomplish the deity. This is not how actually the deity is accomplished. There are some individuals who even may accomplish the deity within just one day. So you have to see for yourself by looking at your own experience, your own state of mind, and how your mind becomes free of the grasping at true concrete existence, and also our concepts and our ideas around the all various appearances. And you look at your experience of having unified emptiness with compassion. And so within that state of emptiness, then you should have realized the non-duality of self and other, and that all appearance of separation of self and other is just a temporary karmic imprint, a temporary arising. And so once you have actually realized that view of emptiness and compassion, then there is no more fixation, no more thought that anything at all possesses any true existence, including your own concept structures. And everything appears as the deity. And so that is actually also the fifth benefit of the siddhi, the attainment. So there are these 9 benefits, of which I just mentioned 5, also because I don't remember all of them, but these 5 are actually the most important ones. Also, in terms of another benefit of the mantra garland actually is that if it's difficult to always visualize the mantra garland, you can also spin a prayer wheel, which has the same benefits. And that's also why many prayer wheels are being fabricated nowadays. And like the handheld prayer wheels or the other like larger prayer wheels that are set up at the entrances of different monasteries or dharma centers and so on. And the reason why the monasteries set up these large prayer wheels there is because it is said that anyone who sees, hears of, remembers, or comes into contact with it will purify their obscurations. So there's many great benefits. And so that's why dharma centers and also monasteries have these large prayer wheels set up at their entrances. And then also it can be a great accumulation of the one who produces those prayer wheels, a great accumulation of merit. And of course, if they would only think about their own business and try to get out of it as much as possible, then of course it wouldn't be a meritorious activity. And anything that we do with this kind of intention loses its power, and the strength of merit really is diminished. So this quote we mentioned yesterday also relates to here. We said that one with merit, anyone who accomplishes a purpose with merit is like a shining sun, and then conversely, anyone who tries to accomplish a purpose with effort only is like the flame of a butter lamp that will be extinguished. So we can not accomplish everything just with effort, but accomplishment actually happens because of the merit that we have accumulated. So if that merit is not present, then even if we make an effort, then things will not be accomplished. If one has the merit, on the other hand, then things just happen naturally. One is just like the sun. Things fall into place naturally. There are many people like that in the world. So in any case, if it is difficult to always visualize the mantra garland, you can also spin a small handheld prayer wheel. And that is also a way to accumulate the cause of merit continuously. And it is a cause of benefit and happiness. So whatever is a cause of benefit and happiness is what we call merit. And merit, in brief, is a mind of love. And if you have that, then any activity will become accomplished. So if you know about these benefits, these 9 or less benefits, then you will really see the significance, the benefit of spinning a prayer wheel. And that's also why most centers and monasteries have set them up, because these prayer wheels are so beneficial. Thank you, and please take a break for 20 minutes.